There is a reason why Marvel's Spider-Man from Insomniac Games is considered as one of the best superhero games of all time. It's an amazing combination of perhaps the most fun way to move around in a game world, a great story and a brilliant and captivating soundtrack by John Passano. Of course you can criticize its Ubisoft-style watchtowers, unnecessary minigames, quick-time events as well as repetitive side quests. Yet in the end, Marvel's Spider-Man is overall a great package. It also sets the stage for the great sequel around his friend Miles Morales. What's up, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Timo and I welcome you to the Deckverse deep dive covering Marvel's Spider-Man Remastered on the Steam Deck. The game has finally been released on PC, and although it does indeed look great on a beefy GPU and big screens, it begs the question, how good does it run on the Steam Deck? Without further ado, let's get to it. Upon first launch on the Steam Deck, the game resorts to medium settings by default. Full screen, upscaling through AMD FSR 2.0 and a dynamic resolution with a frame rate target of 30 FPS. Everything else uses the medium preset, which is why most things are set to medium except depth of field and shadow quality. Nixxes software, who are responsible for the port to the PC, seem to aim for a frame rate target of 30 FPS, which can successfully be maintained by the Steam Deck in most cases. Only very rarely does the performance drop around 25 FPS for a few seconds, but due to the lack of an in-engine framerate cap, there's a constant fluctuation upwards, which results in a very inconsistent gaming experience. In theory, you could use Raylan's framerate limiter you can find in the deck's quick menu, but this will introduce a massive amount of input lag due to its forced triple buffering. Another valid option would be leveraging half refresh rate VSync. In theory, while using a refresh rate of 60 Hz, this would slice the same amount in half and therefore cap the FPS at 30. But sadly this won't work because of a driver issue with Proton. So right out of the box, for a 30 FPS experience, you either have to deal with an uncapped frame rate or input lag. If there were no other option, I would actually choose the latter for the sake of frame pacing consistency. But thankfully there actually is. During my testings, I came up with an idea that revolves around something Simon Halston, more widely known as Flightless Mango, created. I'm talking about MangoHUD, which is an overlay pre-installed to your Steam Deck. I bet you already had a chance to try it out. When activating through the quick menu, it provides various stats around your deck's hardware. You might not know, but MangoHUD is capable of more than you would expect at the first glance. One of those things is capping the frame rate without forced triple buffering. Long story short, if you want to play at consistent 30 frames per second, I'd highly recommend on adding the following launch option to Spider-Man in your Steam Deck's library to cap the frame rate to 30. Don't worry, you don't have to pause the video because I put the command in the description. Still, as with everything, there is sadly a small caveat to it. While Raylan's framerate limiter with its input lag still ensures a near perfect frame time, the MangoHUD solution comes with some fluctuations. I personally rarely notice that, so in the end it's up to you to decide what feels the best. But now onto the juicy stuff. Setting the refresh rate through the deck's quick menu to 40 Hz and activating VSync as this organically caps the frame rate to 40. Now we only got to make sure that the deck can maintain this value somewhat consistently. During my testings, I came across some interesting things that I would like to share with you. For example, I was initially very excited about FSR 2.0 in Spider-Man. Especially for the Steam Deck, a true blessing, I have already added this feature via mod to Cyberpunk 2077 and Red Dead Redemption 2. And yes, those are still on their way. Yet the way FSR 2.0 seems to work in Insomniac's proprietary engine results in both strange framerate spikes and fuzzy visuals. so I decided against those and opted for dynamic resolution scale on 45 instead, which I cover later on. I've also noticed that the game's occlusion culling isn't always fast enough to catch up with a fast swinging hero from the neighborhood when using either FSR or ITGI, Insomniac's own upscaling method. In terms of dynamic resolution scaling though, I would love to see Nixxes adding an option for a 40 FPS goal. Setting DRS to 30 somewhat ensures that this value is held to in most situations, but since we are looking for the golden 40 experience, we should resort to the Framerate goal of 45. Combined with the 40 FPS cap through VSync, this leads to the engine constantly trying to alter the resolution. That results in a lower resolution scaling than set to 30. So it would be really cool to get that 5 FPS headroom back in terms of overall visual clarity. That being said, during tweaking I furthermore noticed that some textures on classy buildings lack of their reflections when set to low or medium. Even with screen space reflections activated, which fundamentally complement stuff like puddles, windows on buildings look rather dull. Once we set texture quality too high, we get fancy cube maps which mimic their surroundings. While nothing like real-time reflections, they add massively to the overall look to the game, so I decided to stick to them. Working off of the order default's medium settings, I prefer to leave some of them unchanged. Especially texture filtering and ambient occlusion are already set to their best compromises in visuals and resource expenses. While SSAO adds a lot to the game's visual depth, HBAO Plus would be a massive strain to the frame rate and doesn't even work properly right now. Level of detail at medium seems to be a good choice as well. Both traffic and crowd density should be set to low, as they will massively bloat up the data streaming and result in more frame rate dips while traversing through the city. Hair quality seems to be a big strain in cutscenes, and weather particle quality has also an unexpectedly huge impact to Spider-Man's open world performance, so we set them both to low as well. Same goes with depth of field, just make sure to not set it to very low, as this ends up quite messy in some cutscenes. I'd really highly recommend chromatic aberration. Here you will instead get a very slight but pleasant blurring towards the screen's edge. This helps to visually fight aliasing, which is often more noticeable in that area due to objects usually being closer to the camera. With everything set, we now only have to make sure the quick menus per game profile is activated and refresh rate set to 40 Hz. While all of this results in a pretty consistent frame pacing due to the golden 40s nature, which I comprehensively explained in this video, we still have to deal with some FPS dips while swinging through New York and in intense combat situations. This may be fixed in the long run, since it's related to the data streaming of Insomniac's engine due to the deck's limited power budget. As always, one last thing. Please keep in mind that right now this preset is more like a framerate goal than a perfect set of settings. Also, this will push your deck's hardware to its limit. You can expect a battery life of 1.5 hours, in rare cases up to 2 hours. If you're instead looking for more battery-focused optimizations, I would like to recommend to pay Steam Deck HQ a visit in the next days. They usually provide great settings to keep your device cool in order to enjoy longer play sessions without an external power source nearby. If you have any questions or requests, either let me know in the comments or become part of our great Discord community. As usual, all links in the video description below. Thank you for your attention, great feedback so far, and especially for the wonderful support on Patreon. If you like my work, leave a thumbs up, ring the bell and subscribe to the channel.